developing steadily. What kind of cooperation do you see in this particular area?
I would say that the first time it got into the agenda was in the strategic partnership document that the two countries signed in 2000. If we look at the few components of it, the first is of course the economics. The second is not the other aspects, but is the security. And that brings, so which means that the intent of enhancing cooperation in the strategic sector was there right from the early on. And over the years, certainly like during the last say 12-13 years, terrorism, as Ambassador Ram pointed out, that this has emerged as an important area where the two countries have been collaborating and will be collaborating further, apart from non-traditional security issues. And if I could add to this whole discourse, I think today at the larger global level, India and Germany need to discuss. There's a need to discuss, and for India to leverage, and there's a need for major mindset change.
Okay.
I think these three things are blocking the full-fledged India-Germany partnership to evolve. We've already laid out like numbers of areas of cooperation. Now we need to deepen it. In order to deepen it, we need to bring down barriers which are being, which are existing, and on different one or another pretext, they are coming up, and they will be coming up again and again in the negotiations also. So those things need to go down. The barriers, non-tariff barriers or other set of barriers, they need to go down, and that requires a major change of mindset especially in the European Union countries, including Germany. For India, I think as an emerging market, as a big huge market, I think India needs to look at its own leverage and needs to strike deal on that count, that okay, if you are coming into the Indian market, you have to play by the rules of the game. And that rules of the game should benefit. India is already having a huge trade deficit with.
Right.
And so India, and plus entry into the Indian market, we should not be at the cost of the the Indian economy per se, especially the small scale sector, or say small and medium enterprise sector, and certain where the labor, which are more labor intensive industries. That's one thing. And this another important thing is that both India and Germany, they need to discuss as to how, as two major democracies, global democracies, as two major powers representing two important continents, and two important collaborators also in the global politics, how they need to work together towards the reforms of these international institutions. And UN Security Council comes there. Why I'm saying that there's a need for debate, because I don't think they're on the same page even on the UN Security Council reforms, though they both have supported each other, and that support is already since 2000, the joint is the Germany's idea that India should not insist on, for example, this one of the divergent component is that India should not insist on veto rights in the changed UN Security Council.
Right.
Which means that that there is a need for debate and discussion between India and Germany as to how they want to really formulate a common agenda and a common approach towards one important issue that concerns both the countries.
Right.
So I guess that's the debate. The leverage is certainly, I've already talked about it, and India needs to exploit on that, especially if it goes towards the larger like India-EU free trade agreement or larger India-Germany cooperation. And I think there's a need to utilize those expertise towards cementing, deepening the cooperation. The areas have been well laid out now. Now there's a time to deepen it.
And now it's time to bring down barriers.
Yeah,
that
bring
exist.
down barriers.
But Mr. Ram, talking about UNSC reform, we do know that German approach to the UNSC reform is not identical to that of India's. How can we work on our differences there?
No, the principles and fundamentals, I think we are on the same page. Democratization of the global decision-making system is what India stands for, what India espouses. I think Germany also says the same thing. The need to reform the post-World War II structures, whether it is the UN or the Bretton Woods institutions, I think
technology and these other aspects. But just to touch upon briefly on this.
Very quickly, I'm out of time.
Okay, so this Max Planck is also initiating some of these anthropological studies on, say, for example, the Jarawa tribes in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So that's just to touch upon this culture. But I would say bring down barriers and change of mindset from the EU side. India to be less fearful towards the this big image of EU, and of course bargain, strike a hard bargain.
All right, so there is much we can do together to our mutual benefit if we bring down our barriers. On that note, it's time for me to wrap up the discussion here. I'd like to thank all my guests for coming to the studios. It was a pleasure having you all here. That's it for now in this edition of Insight. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.